What's up, world? My name is Shingo too. Real name is Shingo Annan. I'm here to talk to my good friend CIMONE KAMEI today. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good.
Do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, my name is Dr. CIMONE KAMEI. I practice Oriental medicine, and I practice in a way that it is holistic, and we I take care of the patient's health by actually changing the uh, total constitution of the body.
How long have you been doing that?
Well, I've been doing this for 20 years now.
That's awesome. So
Yeah,
we're coming at you from Honolulu, Hawaii right now, those of you that don't know. And gosh, where do we start? This is such a
I
vast
know,
topic,
I know.
but I think the point is we're going through some extraordinary times right now where there are a lot of issues out there concerning our health and also our not only our lives and well-being but our livelihoods as well. And not only is it a uniquely American problem, obviously, it's not just a northern hemisphere problem, it's a global issue.
Right,
And I personally believe that there are a lot of talking points in the world right now, but one topic is sorely missing in that conversation, which is really our own body, and then I just feel that everything should start there and end there, to be honest, because there's so many opposing views. The more you study about the health, even,
right.
everything is so politicized and everything, it just seems very skewed, in my opinion. What do you think?
No, I totally agree. It gets more confusing as you look into things and all these details we've been going
Yeah.
through for many years. And
Definitely,
yeah,
and I have a overwhelming feeling that there's so many intelligent people out there, professional people, and people who care and trying to help, but we're only operating within the parameters that are given to us, such as certain data points, statistics, projections, that, in my opinion, is still very arbitrary, and it still depends on a lot of assumptions, scientific and otherwise. Yeah.
I think so too.
Yeah. So, yeah, we'll get to our point soon. However, we just kind of have to open it up from that angle, in which I feel like, okay, let me put it this way. I really want to provide a framework which has helped me, which has been beneficial for me in terms of putting out a theory, first of all, that everybody is right. In a sense that, not anybody's maliciously trying to skew the reality. But in fact, what they're doing is they're observing the same thing from a different angle and possibly from a different light. You know what I mean? So depending on which angle you're describing the situation from is drastically different, right? In terms of science, in terms of sociology, in terms of economics, in terms of race, age group. So we're just kind of like swimming in the cesspool of information, so to speak, trying to figure this out, and not only trying to understand, but really trying to navigate how we're going to survive, right?
Right.
Both in terms of economics, obviously, but also just honestly worried about our health, and maybe not our own, but our loved ones or parents and whatnot. Yeah. So that is pretty much a prevailing stress and tension that's happening in the world. And even as we speak right now, in mid-April 2020, we have pretty much no end in sight, depending on how you look at it. So that is just a framework that I want to provide.
Right.
And like I said, which has helped me a lot, and then in terms of neutralizing this idea that the virus, which we speak of, which I really don't even have to name, in terms of this topic, that the virus is somewhat of an enemy that we have to conquer and is something that we need to attack.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's sort of embedded in our culture, I'm sure. So that's sort of a topic where we do need to kind of rephrase a little. That'll be very
Definitely.
important to do that too.
I agree. We have to look at things from a holistic perspective, not just from your medical
Oh, yeah.
experience,
Right.
but also really take several steps back and understand that the world, first of all, operates in synergy.
Yes.
The health, of course, the world, economy, in terms of how global we have become. I mean that in a good way. and kind of we have to get rid of this almost fascination or fixation that there's one cause for everything. You know what I mean?
I understand.
And then there's also one magic solution for everything.
Right.
And that's kind of, kind of making a generalized statement. But I believe that to be true in terms of the narrative that's being given to us.
Right.
Okay. So that's kind of what I want to talk about. And just to provide material for our talking points, I've prepared a few infographics for you. So, like I said, I want this topic to be about our own body. So here's the first one. So keep in mind also, there's a lot of advantages with infographics in that we kind of make a lot of complex systems like very easy to talk to and refer to, but there's also benefits and dangers of that because you kind of tend to oversimplify things. But this is our objective, trying to present you what I think is very important. Yeah. So what can you say about what we call an immune response and this whole complex, robust systems of us dealing with outside external stimuli, if you will, and then how we build our immune system?
First of all, the understanding of the immune system is very, very specific yet. I think the immune system contains a lot more broad perspectives, such as proper circulation to your core temperature, to how the blood circulates, to what quality is your body fluids, and
definitely
many systems, more. You need to cover all those areas much as possible, and then call it a immune system.
Right. So even in terms of biochemistry, that we're so fond of looking at molecules and this and that, there's a whole universe of, even just how the different cells of the immune system develops from basically a stem cell, the network of blood cells, how they interact with each other, and what we call an immune response is just one form of function that we have embedded in us.
From one or two perspective.
Yeah.
You're right.
So could you explain quickly the relationship between an innate system and an adaptive system?
Well, I guess in a regular sense, I guess in the world, it is known that immune system, it is either your innate immune system, it's like a natural immune system that you had always carried with you, and there's another immune function called adaptive, immune system that you actually have to adapt.
I guess, I wanted to create this idea that everything is a circulation. We have the symptom, which is basically a reaction to what comes from the outside. And how would you describe what a symptom is in terms of a holistic view instead of a Western view, a symptom as a part of the disease that you have to quell?
I guess in a holistic view, including Oriental medicine and whatever out there in the world, everything begins from your internal condition, which is a lot of the symptoms are not perceived the same. We don't really look at the symptom. We actually get to the cause of the problem. A lot of times it is a poor circulation or stagnated blood.
Right.
There's all kind of different ways to analyze this depending on what medicine you belong in. But to put it bluntly, in a simple term, it's a condition of your, the blood.
Right.
So what we do is we always focus on taking care of patients' blood to run smoother, eat right, get the blood cleansed,
or the blood
put some minerals in there, to actually get your core health, your core entire health to come back up.
So it is a constant cycle, whether we're conscious or not. Of course, mostly it's like done without thinking about it, or whether you're even awake or not. And all this to say, like, why is it relevant to our ongoing crisis? I was really thinking a lot about, basically what is a virus? Not just this particular virus going on, but what is a virus? And everybody thinks that is a disease-carrying agent, aka a pathogen.
Right.
But if you take, like I said, several steps back, knowing that a virus is defined as a piece of a protein, like nucleic acid, either DNA or RNA, in an envelope, I had this almost like an epiphany one night that really excited me. And I was like, what if we just looked at viruses more like a message, message in an envelope? And if the message itself is only programmed to replicate, or Xerox, if you will, who is sending that message? It must have come from somewhere, right? Because even in our bodies, only your cells are able to make copies of the virus.
Right.
Right. So from our knowledge, we're expected to think that the virus depends on the cell to be replicated. But if you go back, it's like a chicken or egg situation. You can also say that the cells are producing the viruses
That's right.
to be sent out.
Yes.
Right.
You could definitely say that.
So check this out, right? So I wanted to make a postulate, basically the virus is a message, or you can even call it a messenger. And what are viruses doing? Because for the most part, bacteria and stuff, bacterial infections are real, obviously, because the bacteria wants to replicate for its own survival, right? Then what are agents such as viruses created for? I just kind of assumed because we all have different reactions to the virus, which is interpreted as a symptom.
Yes.
I would assume that the viruses are sent as like a symptom report, because it's sending out a report to either your own cells or your neighbors. I'm sure you've heard a lot about the word herd immunity.
Yes, I'm sure everybody heard about that, right?
Thinking back to the fact that our cycle of immune responses have built over millions and millions of years, and in terms of how we've survived as a species, maybe that's how we gained our strength, by the theory that that only the strong survive.
Right.
In a primitive sense. I don't mean to say that in a modern context, obviously. All I'm trying to say is that our immune system has evolved over the years by receiving these messages and sharing these viral responses within a herd, right? Because like 10,000 years ago, chances are, if we're close enough that I can infect you with my saliva, we're probably eating and drinking the same things.
Oh yeah.
So therefore, the virus that I create is probably very relevant for you as well. So maybe if we get infected at the same time, and then you produce a response to it, and then you share it with a neighbor, and then we'll all get over it that way, which is our herd immunity. That is probably how we have learned how to overcome diseases in general.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think so too. And this virus as a messenger theory it fits really nicely. It really explains very well, especially if you put it together with all that natural medicine and holistic view. Of course, including Oriental medicine and everything else. But because then, if the virus is gonna come in to become a stimulant, okay, instead of virus being a disease itself, if the virus is becoming a stimulant, and it's up to your body how you're gonna present it, or how to come out of it, or to what shows up.
Right.
So
as evidenced by the fact that people do respond differently. Theoretically speaking, there could be a virus that wipes out everybody, regardless. It could be a total kill switch that shut you down, which is poisoning, like bacterial infection that happens with, say, an anthrax or something. So that is very well possible. I'm not saying that your immune system can fend anything off. That is a very relative question. But by reducing the idea that all stimulants are bad, we want to put the power back into our own immune systems, whether conscious or not. How we respond to it is what makes the difference, right? So also, for all of you watching out there, reading all the news that you're being fed, aka the feed that comes down, that you absorb everything. I'm sure everything right now is highly politicized, and there's a lot of conjecture regarding like where did the virus come from. But if you reduce the virus to an idea that it's a message, for me, it almost doesn't matter whether it came from a bat and there's a zoonotic transfer to an intermediary and then it skipped to a human, or could it have been studied as part of this whole gain of function idea at a biosafety lab, or was it, God forbid, a bioweapon? To me, it really doesn't matter, because in terms of our immune response should be what we can control the most.
That's right.
Yeah, and that is our first line of defense or our last line of defense.
Because your virus is going to use your body as a medium.
Exactly.
Anyway.
Exactly.
That's what we're trying to say. And then also this virus as a message theory is going to open up the path for many people to look back into your own natural immunity instead of just waiting for the adaptive immunity to come.
And
I think
also artificially.
Yeah, and that alone is going to take the power back into your own hands.
Right.
And I think that's very important.
Right.
Yeah.
So again, all this to say, like, I'm not trying to like discredit any type of hospital care or medicinal care, but what this graph is trying to show, that it should be there to support our own immune response that has evolved over many years.
Yes.
And it never should be a method trying to control it.
Right.
Or trying to claim that it has the answer, which is like a magic bullet, when our body is far more complex than that.
That's right.
In terms of response.
Yes.
Okay. So I also have another flip side, which I think is highly, 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 highly important in terms of talking about our immune system, which is, our immune level, right? Or, again, this is a very generalized graph, but there are many things that affect our immune level so that we can run optimally in what we perceive as, quote, healthy, right? But we can all agree, even in this situation right now, that people who are, quote, immunocompromised, or people who are what you call sick already, which I interpret it as our immune system is already taxed, or it's busy doing other things. Our immune cells are deployed dealing with another problem. So once you compound several problems, we'll never know what those synergistic effects are, including side effects.
Right.
Right. So I wanna break down this idea in a very macro, or like in a meta perspective,
right.
Like looking at how hundreds and thousands of years we have gone through this cycle. What do you think?
Well, this one here is really straight up. It's easy to understand. You got your optimal immune level, moderate and low, and it's all depending on what you eat, food, essential nutrition, such as protein, carbs, fats, vitamin, etc., hydration, homeostasis, gut flora, the microbes in the intestines, to physical exercise, sunlight, mental health, sleep, and recovery. All this, goodness should keep your immune level really high. And this is nothing new.
Right, it's not. It's all common sense,
it
really.
Is.
But I think it's a common sense that too often we take for granted.
Yes.
Every line we can discuss and talk about for hours if we want to, how important and crucial it is that we remain,
right.
We remain. I don't even know. Like, we remain healthy, overall, and body and mind, which we are actually finding out now, through science, that yes, having sunlight creates, vitamin D, and yes, having a good mental health creates good hormones. And I don't think you need to read an academic paper to understand
right.
why you got to eat certain vegetables and how vitamins and chlorophylls and all these things could help you. But it is in there. So it is now starting to become a consensus that nutritional science is indeed very important, right? Is it not? And not just what we call simple foods and Western foods, but also all the wisdom in the past of taking these herbs and such have actual effects that you could trace on a molecular level.
Right, or the food that has a herbal effect. So it's a vice versa.
Right, so that's already common sense, right? But on the flip side of it, what things actually compromise your immune system, like malnutrition, poor diet, being dehydrated, and causing all sorts of imbalance because now you're deficient in a lot of minerals. So your body is kind of running on fumes at that point, yeah?
Right.
And then substance abuse, synthetic chemicals through foods as well, and the physical and mental stress. And a lot of times, we do put our stresses through our own choice because that is our work or that is what gives us pleasure. You know what I mean? Like whether it's exercise or whatnot. But we all know that physical and mental stress, through our primitive means for survival, it does pause on a lot of regulatory functions of our blood and immune system, and it produces a lot of cortisol hormones, right?
Right.
So we really know that if we put our bodies through constant stress, your immune system is not functioning properly, as in repairing things that need to be repaired. You're always going to be accumulating a lot of fatigue and stress in your body, and when that becomes chronic, that becomes part of your regular metabolism, so you're kind of running in a certain way that kind of downtrends into a more inviting environment. So those basic principles, I think, applies to not just us modern, all the challenges we face in modern times, but all the centuries of the past as well. So I always wonder when people talk about past diseases and past epidemics, pandemics, like how much of this have people taken into consideration? Even in recent pandemics, like how much have we looked at the nutritional habits or access regionally, or what were any environmental, pollutants that were happening? Some are artificial, some are natural, and all of these things really need to be looked at before blaming everything on one virus that killed everybody.
Exactly.
Yeah. And also as a cautionary tale to our friends, just because you do all of these things and you take one vitamin, it does not cancel out habits. If you want yourself to be running at an optimal level, you need to address these situations, including your environmental ones. But you know what I mean? You can't just sugarcoat, okay, don't eat sugar. But you can't just like glaze over something with goodness and expect the whole thing underneath to heal itself.
That's right.
Yeah, so I also think that in terms of what is happening statistically in the world right now, when the conversation or the thinking is circulating in this low immune level, I think our whole awareness is also dragged down into that level when this becomes normalized. Because as stressful as it is to read through these lists, this is pretty much a description of modern life.
Right, it is.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, I'm definitely guilty of it. We compromise our food. I forget to drink water. I'm not that careful about synthetic chemicals. I do stress all the time. I'm sleep deprived most of the time. So yeah, nobody's exempt. So all I'm saying is if this becomes normalized, we're talking about immunocompromised people, immunocompromised environments, then we're kind of trying to look for a solution within a poor set of options. And then we're kind of trained to think that, okay, we have to take these pills that will solve our issues.
Right. I don't think that's going to work that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to get the foundation right in order for things to work.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're totally, not taking this in account,
yeah,
what are you doing,
Yeah, exactly. What are we doing? So I think, I've learned a lot from you over the years, trying to look for a holistic perspective. And of course, there's many sciences that haven't even come out yet. So that we're just evolving into as far as looking at things from a more synergistic effects and the power of our mind, how much that affects our hormones, and looking at more of a psychoenergetic level. There's so many things that we don't know about, even from a scientific perspective, right? Like what about the placebo effect and the opposite nocebo effect, right?
All those things are very important, factors that we're probably not even looking at right now.
Right. Definitely.
Right.
So and also I can't mention enough about the mental stress when somebody is thinking they have a disease.
Oh man, that's gonna be tremendous.
That's almost traumatic to your system, and we have to really think in terms of when somebody tells you that there is no cure, maybe they're right. Because in terms of the body, there is no curing. There's only healing. right? So we really have to focus on how to heal constantly. And even though our body it does work like a machine in an abstract level, but it's a machine that regenerates over time as we deteriorate with age, gracefully, gracefully. So, but it is a regenerative system. That is how it's so different from a machine. Therefore, we have to be the steerers of our own immune system and then help each other in that way.
I see. And then as far as for the immune system, I think it's really, really important to know that what you eat becomes your body.
Exactly, yeah.
You see, so all this one body here is made up of all this mineral compound to all this element is all from the earth.
Mm-hmm.
So it's what you eat.
Right.
So you want to have that.
You are what you eat.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's
and
really
food
important.
Is medicine.
Food is medicine. And
right.
especially if you're talking about the disease, whatever that disease that comes out is the result of the food. Is sort of the base that you want to go back to.
Right. So, yeah, in short, all these responses that we have as a society. So I also wanted to run a quick parallel that I feel, is that, it's almost the message, right, is brought to us, to our body, and then what we see with people with lower immune system is that when the body panics and then the white blood cells are not coordinated properly, when the regulatory agents are gone, it runs amok and then it starts attacking your own cells.
Right.
We have seen that, right?
Right.
So I almost see the parallel in our own society that, if we panic as a society, even in the process of trying to protect the vulnerable sections of our community, we almost start attacking the abled cells of people that should be actually, kind of coordinating so that we can help each other. So right. I definitely see that social parallel, and then panic and stress is like the worst thing that could happen to us.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and this is not to minimize any sort of problem that are happening right now, but I do see that there's not enough emphasis put out there that stress can literally be bad for us.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can't keep feeding on it either.
Right.
Right.
Definitely feeding into it
yeah.
and also being fed to us.
That's right.
Okay, so check this out. I have a last parting message for us. So this is something that I found out just through research, just thinking about, it's the same concept, how we basically scapegoat the virus into the root of all of our diseases and identifying everything as pathogens, right? Pathogens or pathogenesis, we share the etymology with the word pathos. And what does that mean? So originally, I thought it was interesting. Of course, the word logos, pathos, ethos, kairos, they exist before the time of Aristotle, but he published books basically explaining what is the techniques to persuade somebody, right? That is very much prevalent in our society, and I think is very relevant to us right now because we're still using these words that contain the same meaning that have been handed down to us through different civilizations, which is kind of amazing in that way. So the definition of it, you see logos as being, logic and reasoning with data, right? That I think that has kind of translated into how much we believe in science and technology. And pathos, which is actually to emote, but eventually it started to become how it means to suffer and being sad, right? So pathology also means we have associated disease with suffering and something that you need to be saved. And even though that sounds like dramatized, in the past, it has been applied and defined in that way that you need to be literally saved, in a religious context. And disease actually means unease as well, right? So, all of this is very relevant to us, like such as how they use the authority, whether it be political will of the people, and then also the academic authority that people have established over the years. And, we definitely adhere to that. We don't necessarily try to oppose the authority intentionally, right? And then, the far reach of the media. All of these things definitely influence our everyday thinking. it kind of makes me question sometimes. Not necessarily the system itself, but why do we try to trust them without any kind of questioning? What do you think about that in terms of the medical profession?
It's very relevant with medicine too. It's sort of like what's common sense in a broad way. It sort of becomes like the rule. So in that sense, it's this really talks about it.
Yeah. So as much as like science and technology has been advancing in terms of like industrial revolution, now we have the modernization of technology, and then the computer, the internet, and now we have genetic engineering, and then we're about to go even further probably, like all the synthesizing of different technologies like artificial intelligence, and it goes on and on and on. But every time like we are going to be faced with the same type of challenges, I think, and if we as a people don't become aware of that, how authority and knowledge is transferred to us, if we don't start forming our own questions with our own critical eye in the spirit of taking care of each other, I think we're basically going to be blind ourselves. So it really has to be a well-balanced effort.
Right, and I think it's really not right, for example, to think that, this specific herbal is going to kill the virus, or it's going to take care of the virus. It's really not like that. All this, proper food eating and all these natural remedies are about taking care of your the natural immune system to keep it in a intact level.
Right.
So you have to kind of look at it and understand it that way.
Right. Definitely. So we, the people, is actually defined by what is going on right now. Because if you even look at the root of the word epidemic, it simply means upon the people. There's no connotation of any type of disease. And the word pandemic, as you know, pan, all, and demic is people. So it just means all people. So I hope that we can use this extraordinary, again, time that we're experiencing in 2020 of a pandemic that no one has ever experienced in our own lives. And for sure, it's going to go back to normal, quote, normal soon. Whether that's like a month or two away, but moving forward, there are a lot of things that we are going to be faced with that challenge, the same set of challenges, and not just from a virus, and all of these things, rewinding back to where did the virus come from?
Right.
Could it have possibly come from animals that were stressed?
I'm very sure. I mean, it could be anything.
All these bird flu and swine flu, could they have been possibly stressed in their environment? Could they have been breathing in contaminants and unsanitary conditions that could have possibly produced the virus?
That's something you can't really ignore.
Yeah, honestly, we don't. And just the fact that the virus is something so small, right, 100 times order smaller than a bacteria, therefore, we actually don't know the causality that much, do we, right?
No.
We can rely on electron micro photo imaging and all of these things, but it's not like no one ever saw a virus invade a cell.
That's the truth, right?
Yeah, that is the truth.
Right.
So, I don't want to get into the details of the technology behind the testing, but even to detect the fragments of an RNA, we have to magnify it in order of millions, billions, perhaps trillions by the time you cycle up to the upper 30s. Yeah.
Right.
So what we're doing right now could be technologically sound or technically proven. However, the more we amplify, like I see a parallel socially as well. The more we amplify, the more we're amplifying the possibility of how we're, quote, infected. And then we're passing on the amplification to how much we have to amplify our efforts to distance ourselves, right? So I'm not opposing the mandate by any means. However, what is that doing to us mentally? We have to be aware.
Right.
Right, because the science is just a theory at this point, and we have to decide how we can protect ourselves the best way we know how, and it all starts from ourselves. Yeah.
Yes, I completely agree with that.
Yeah. So that's just kind of the rundown for now. There's so many things that we can talk about, hours on end, and I hope that again, I've provided some sort of framework so that everything fits, but centered around you. You know,
Right.
starting from all these conspiracy theories to what could happen from now, what is the vaccine doing to us, what medicine is relative to our healing. But again, you know, it really has to start from us, and then we really have to kind of have the conversation revolve around that. Otherwise, we're just spending energy not going anywhere.
I agree.
Yeah. Any lasting words?
I think it's really important that for people to understand your own health is what you have control over, and please work on making that optimal. And if you understand the another, you know, the another dimension of, you know, virus being a messenger, if you think about it that way, it may even reduce your stress level a little bit lower. It'll make it a little bit lower. It may give you a little bit more better mental health, you know, so that's to say.
Yeah. So, I mean, even myself, I know people who got tested and came back positive. I know friends with families in the ICU. So I know it's very real, you know, but, you know, in order to understand what is happening to their own health is a whole different universe, and it's not anything that could be determined by one test.
Yes.
So I really hope that everybody, you know, looks at health in that manner, and you just don't decide from one test. And that's for real. That goes back to everything in the past century. So I hope, you know, we can strengthen each other, we can encourage each other, and move forward in a positive way.
Right.
All right? How's
Right.
that?
Very good.
Okay, peace out.